What's up, everybody? You found us. It's the Thursday sports edition of the Slate. Although you may have noticed, Sweet Tea, Reed T. Fowler, he's not here. I don't know where he is. He could be off just running the world. It doesn't matter. I'm here, Adam Kaufman, and more importantly, Geoff Ulrich. Moose is back. I know he does the Slate, he does the Sweat. He's busy multiple times a week. We talk all the time, but here on the Slate, my man, it has been weeks, months even. I don't even know. It's great to see you.
It's true. And, you know, where Reed is, he's probably vacationing, taking a day off because Reed is soft. You know, and we need to keep Reed in good shape. We don't want him getting stressed out. We need his good rational takes, his good information that he brings on Twitter. But no, he's probably just taking a Reed day. That's fine. I don't need days off.
Sure. You know, I was the one aspect, and I could just as easily text him or something like that. But I got the direct line, guys. I can reach out to him personally. I don't need to just talk to him here on the Slate. But I didn't know, it's not just my imagination, right? Like, he's tweeting a lot more than before. Do you think so? Did somebody get in his ear and be like, Reed, you got to be more active on social media?
I don't know. I mean, I'm tweeting less because I don't have any time. So, I mean, maybe he's just like trying to like vulture my followers or something. But Reed's a good source of information. You should give him a follow if you haven't. And he is tweeting more about NFL. He's very big into the season long stuff as well. So,
yeah. No, he's talking about waiver wire pickups. There's a lot of action out there that Reed's tweeting about. It's
a way better Twitter feed than my Twitter feed. I just tweet out random stupid videos like a couple times a week, and that's pretty much it these days. And my articles.
Listen, man, I mean,
you should read. But
half my tweets are just, go #Celtics. So I'm not adding anything.
Great day of football. That's a Kaufman tweet right there.
It's just a great Sunday, isn't it, folks? Oh boy, thanks for being with us. If you got any questions, you got any comments, any concerns, anything, if you're watching along on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, wherever we've got answers for you. We're going to be heavy football here over the next 40 minutes or so before we get out of here. But of course, we will get into a little bit of basketball, a little bit of hockey with Geoff here, maybe even some golf before we jump out. But let's start on the gridiron. It's Thursday, kicking off week 9. You normally I say like, you got to give the people what they want, Geoff. I don't know if what they want is the New York Jets at the Indianapolis Colts, but nevertheless, it's the hand we have been dealt for tonight. Zach Wilson is among those out, but who cares when you've got Mike White? I mean, we saw it in prime time from Cooper Rush. We saw what Mike White did last week against the Bengals, and now he gets his prime time opportunity. It's not the year of the star quarterback. It is the year of the next quarterback, Geoff.
Yeah. It's going to be, this game does probably have a little bit more appeal, like honestly, with Mike White at quarterback than Zach Wilson. I don't know what that says about Zach Wilson, but we want to see it. Like, is this a repeatable performance? I mean, I think in general, again, if it was Zach Wilson, just, going through the motions, it's his rookie year, there's no pressure. No one's really going to get that down on him because the Jets stink so much. Then I don't even know if people would be that excited, but now it's Mike White and we're like, okay, is this guy actually good? Like, and people are kind of going to, I think, tune in for that. And also you have a Colts team who, I think like they've kind of been snake bit. I mean, lost in overtime last week, lost a close game to the Ravens. Like, can this team get it together? So it's a little bit more intriguing than I think this game could have been at the very least. I can give you my take on Mike White right off the bat if you want to start there, or if you have another question first. But,
yeah, by all means. Yeah, no, we're just going to talk about this game, sports betting, DFS, all of it. So
let's jump into it. I mean, I think when you're looking at Mike White, you've got a guy last week who really just hit a ton of short passes. His receivers, the running backs, Jamison Crowder, they got a lot of yards after the catch. The Bengals just sort of drifted back and let these short passes go for more yards than they should have been. And then you had some end of the game shenanigans with the Bengals turning it over in overtime. And all of a sudden, Mike White's at 400 yards and the Jets win the game in like improbable fashion. I guess the same scenario could play out again. I just don't really think that you should be betting that it's going to. His QB prop for passing, if you want to go under QB props, I believe on the DraftKings Sportsbook up to 255, or at least it was this morning. Well, your screen guy, he's big.
Yeah, jumped on me for a second.
Yeah, so it's actually gone down. So it does look like people have been betting the under on Mike White, which I actually kind of like as well. You've got a Colts defense, the ranked second in DVOA. They've got some really good guys in the middle, probably going to bring a little bit more pressure than usual, I would think. And, the Colts have guys who can chase down these short passes. Like, I don't think, Carter and Crowder are going to go nuts here. And I don't really trust Mike White to get it downfield. So I'm looking for a pretty muted performance. And, and on the other side of the ball, you've got Jonathan Taylor, one of the most efficient rushers in the league. Probably just going to be able to bring a big time of possession for the Colts. So
I am curious, and we'll explore them, obviously, some of the props, player props in particular, and what, you look at this, and we'll go back to the main page for a second here, because I know everybody's looking at it, obviously, and seeing what, what they can get in this game. Overall, you have got, obviously the Colts are 10-point favorites. I want to see what the over-under is here on this game real quick. Let me see, where did it jump on me?
It was 45.5. Yeah.
45.5. So it's Colts are 10-point favorites. They're at home. I didn't realize, by the way, until I read this earlier. I don't know why I found this to be so surprising. Probably shouldn't be, because it's not like the Colts have been great in years, but did you realize this is Indianapolis's first primetime game since December 14th, 2017? More than 1,400 days. It's the first primetime game in almost 4 seasons.
I did not realize it had been that long, but it does feel like a long time since I've watched the Colts in prime time. And it kind of speaks to who their quarterbacks have been, right? Like last year, okay, Phillip Rivers, a little surprised maybe like Phillip Rivers didn't get on, but it was kind of like the
2017, you still had Andrew Luck though.
Yeah, I get that's true, but he was bad. I don't know, that it is weird. I don't disagree.
I guess I just mean I'm not surprised the Colts have not been a featured primetime team, but you would think they'd just be part of one as like the bad team on the other side, like the Jets tonight. You know what I mean?
Like they're playing the Patriots when Tom Brady was still around or something like that, and they just ended up in the slot. But yeah, just it is weird, and like I said, it does feel like a while since I've watched the Colts on like a Sunday nighter or something. So
well, and probably in general because of that, because on Sundays you're watching other teams. But so anyway, building off of what you were talking about before, as interested as I'm sure people are in the primetime Colts discussion, I just if in the whole like tell yourself a story and what's the narrative and how's this game going to look? Again, the Colts are 10-point favorites. I think they deserve to be 10-point favorites despite the Jets having a couple of wins and obviously coming off of that narrow victory over the Bengals. It was a high scoring game. I think the 45.5 honestly is a little bit low. If I'm approaching the over under here tonight, I do think it's going to go over. I don't think it's going to go drastically over, but I do think it's going to go over because I know you talked about the Colts being second DVOA. I don't think either defense is all that inspiring, all that impressive. You do have some key guys out tonight. We talked about Zach Wilson. Tevin Coleman's out. He's not really a key guy. Corey Davis is doubtful right now. He's not going to play. On the other side, T.Y. Hilton, our pal Ty, he's not playing. Paris Campbell remains on IR with the foot injury. It's just, if Mike White, to go back to him, if Mike White is going to do what makes him successful, and why the heck wouldn't he, unless the Jets have no idea what they're doing, you are putting Mike White in exactly the same position that you put him in against the Bengals. Have him, lean on the short passes, air it out maybe on occasion to a Crowder, to a Moore, guys like that. The tight ends are going to be irrelevant probably in this game. As I say that, like watch, Mo Alley Cox or Jack Doyle vulture a touchdown. But it's, the tight ends are not guys that a lot of people are going to be playing in daily fantasy here tonight. Why wouldn't Mike White? 37 out of 45 for 405, 3 touchdowns in his NFL starting debut. It was the record for completions in a first start. It was the first player in NFL history to top 300 yards with a completion percentage of at least 75% in his starting debut. And how did he do it? How did he do it, Moose? He leaned on Michael Carter. We're talking about Jonathan Taylor, and we'll talk more about Jonathan Taylor, but he leaned on Michael Carter. Carter had 9 catches last week. This guy has 17 catches his last 2 games. If you're Mike White, why would you not just continue to feed Michael Carter? Unless the Colts just outright take him out of the game, and I don't see that happening. Feed Michael Carter, load up on Carter in DFS and in your tournaments and your cash games, whatever, for the purposes of PPR. He'll get you those points. Gonna watch him go out and have another 20+ point game here tonight because he winds up finding the end zone as well. I just think like a guy like Carter, Taylor on the other side as well, but Carter in particular feels like a very safe play to me tonight, which makes White all that much more valuable.
So I think the scenario that you're laying out is going to happen. Where I disagree with you is that the Colts are going to let him go for big yardage again, because you've got some really, really solid linebackers and safeties on that team. And the stats kind of play out here. Like the Colts don't allow a ton of receptions to the running backs. And even if they do allow receptions, they don't allow a ton of yardage either. I mean, I'm just looking here in the season. I think they've allowed the 10th least yards to running backs in the receiving game. They really don't allow that much on the ground either. So, I mean, I think they do have the players capable of taking like Michael Carter out. And I do think that's what they're going to try and do, and just make Mike White pass downfield more. And again, this is why I like the Colts. It's a big number, but Mike White has like an over 5% interception rate. He's thrown 4 picks. Yeah, I think it's 4 picks through 1.5 games. I mean, that's not good. So
not great.
I know that the Jets have some athletes, and it could work out. Maybe Crowder like comes through with 15 catches and really just pokes some holes in the Colts secondary. I think Crowder is the more likely one I'd lean on.
I'm just looking at some of these props though, like Carter in particular, and we can get into the receivers, but Carter, so his rushing yards on the DK Sportsbook are 48.5. His receiving yards are 39.5. So the rushing and receiving, over under for him is 91.5.
Yep.
You look at him over his last couple of games, 17 for 162 receiving, 26 for 114 rushing, touchdown the last couple of games as well.
It's begging you to take the over, right? Like absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and in between the two, rushing and receiving, rushing and receiving, the rushing plus receiving, I would take the over. Receiving, I would take the over. I'm not certain how I feel about the rushing. Fine, maybe they contain that backfield a little bit, but I just think I think White as a young, generally inexperienced quarterback, you lean on guys like that.
Absolutely. And I do think like one of Crowder or Carter are probably going to end up with like 5 or more catches. I would rather lean Crowder here. I would even rather go over Crowder's reception total at 5.5. It's plus 115 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. I think if I was going to bet Carter over any of those props, I would actually go over his reception total. Again, I like this Colts defense. I just don't see them allowing many big plays. Like the Colts know what's coming with Mike White. And that's fine. Like Michael Carter and Jamison Crowder have worked well last week, but the Colts know that's coming. Like the Bengals just sort of let their foot off the gas. I just don't know if the yards after the catch are going to be there for those guys this week. So all things considered, I'd rather play the volume play on those two, because there is going to be, somebody's going to catch a bunch of balls, but I think it's going to be a Crowder. I have a little bit more faith in him going up against the secondary than Carter matching up against the linebackers.
So on the other side, Jonathan Taylor is 100 plus yards from scrimmage, so not rushing, but yards from scrimmage and a touchdown, 5 straight games. Those are both the longest active streaks in the NFL right now. You look at him and the rushing plus receiving 107.5. His the number as far as just touchdown scores. Why does it keep doing that? Sorry, jumps on me again. The anytime touchdown minus 200, first score plus 400. I don't know how big a sure thing, quote unquote, he is for a touchdown. I know probably people feel like he is, but in terms of the breaking 100 yards from scrimmage again, do you feel like that's going to happen for a 6th straight game?
Yeah. So I am pretty bullish on playing Jonathan Taylor's props tonight. And there's a way I think you should play it. Like, I don't think you should take the minus 200 for an anytime touchdown. Although, I mean, you can if you want. I'm just going to bring up his stats here quickly. Yeah. So, I mean, we've got Taylor, obviously, really just one of the most efficient rushers in the league right now, 5.4 yards per carry. But more than that, lately, just what he's done from a fantasy perspective.
I just pulled up his game log for you too.
Has been great as well. But the thing that really gets me on the, why I kind of like his touchdown props, and it's more like the first touchdown prop, but also some of the player parlays that I'll get to, is the Jets allow they've allowed the most red zone trips to opponents this year. And they've taken as a team the least red zone trips on themselves this year. So what does that tell you? Well, if the Jets get the kickoff first, they're probably not getting in the red zone, so because they don't do it very often. And you also have like I said, I think a pretty solid defense in the Colts. So that's good. And then on the other side of that, Jonathan Taylor's taken 40 red zone touches. The next highest running back in terms of touches is Nyheim Hines with 6 on the team. The Jets have allowed the most rushing touchdowns to opposing running backs. Like, there's a really good chance here that I actually think the odds on, and Kenny Ducey mentioned this on the Sweat this morning. I'll give him some props. When you're targeting first touchdown scores, you usually shouldn't go with the favorites because they're usually a little bit underpriced. They're really not good value. I think Taylor at plus 400 is actually fine to target here because you've got a team in the Colts. They know what they need to do against the Jets. They need to crash Jonathan Taylor as many times as possible, break this game open, keep the ball out of Carson Wentz's hands. And they can do that because the Jets don't threaten very often in the red zone. So I think Taylor, you can also go to the player props if you go on the DraftKings Sportsbook, and you should bring those up because there's some really interesting Taylor props under player parlays.
Sure.
Yeah. And go down to running back. You probably have to scroll down or something. There we go. Under running back, you can get Jonathan Taylor plus 800 for 2 touchdowns and 125 rush yards. You can get him 150 rush yards or in just 1 touchdown. Those are big odds you're getting there. I like both those, to be honest. I really do feel like it's a big spot. I think I would probably prefer the 2 touchdowns because, again, he's just such a prolific in the red zone. And the Colts have kind of committed to him. So I like attacking these bigger props with Taylor tonight.
What's your overall outlook on this game? Sort of where I started when I was rambling and bouncing around. Is it going to be as lopsided as the odds makers here have it? 10-point game where obviously Mike White is more inclined, you would think, to be throwing the ball all night, that toward the end, Jonathan Taylor or maybe Hines or heck, maybe even, Madden hero Marlon Mack. These guys are going to be just running the ball out throughout the fourth quarter. What's the game script going to look like tonight?
Madden Mack. So I don't think like the Colts. I mean, obviously I do like the Colts on the spread. It's not like my favorite bet of the week or anything, but again, we're talking about one game in prime time in vacuum here with one game to talk about. I would take the Colts, but I think how I see this going is just the Colts, getting ahead like they've been doing lately. They've been getting ahead of teams, but instead of just giving the lead away, I think the defense steps up here against the rookie quarterback. And I think Taylor probably salts it away, with an extra touchdown or 2. So I don't see a lopsided game. Like I think that the Colts take the lead and it stays relatively close. But I think at the end, the speed of this Indy defense probably puts the game away, maybe even with an interception or something late, or maybe Taylor breaks a long run late and then it goes. So I could see this staying within a touchdown for a while. I think the Colts will eventually take the lead, but it's one of those games where it'll probably like the end score. If I'm just predicting, I think the Colts will probably win by like 2 touchdowns, but the game might be a little bit closer than that for the most part.
So on Indy, and I know we've been kind of going back and forth between Sportsbook and obviously Daily Fantasy. And if anybody has any questions, shout them out. We'll get to them. A lot of people are going to zero in on this guy I'm pulling up right here, which is Michael Pittman Jr., who, last week goes off, has the 10 of 15 for 86, found the end zone a couple of times. He was a guy that I faded, swapped out of my lineup last minute, and I was feeling it all day. It was great. But he goes over 30 points. He's had, north of 20, I think 4 times. Yeah, 4 times so far in the first half of the season. So he's been very good. He's averaged 17 points. I think he's going to be extremely chalky tonight, obviously. But is he a guy that you like so much you're inclined to captain him, or is it more of a Taylor, a Carter, even a Wentz?
So, I mean, if you're asking me who, I think the best play is, I think it's Jonathan Taylor. And the thing is, I mentioned this on the Sweat this morning, Pittman is definitely a player you can target. There's no reason why, it's a football game. Taylor's in a great spot, but there's no reason why Carson Wentz can't throw it a couple times and Pittman just breaks a tackle, or maybe they just run one passing play in the red zone and it goes to Pittman and he gets the touchdowns. Kind of what happened last week, right? So he makes sense, but I was more on Pittman as the play where you use to get off of Jonathan Taylor, because ultimately the Colts have a 28 implied team total here. They have a big, they're expected to score 28 points. It's a lot, right? So we want to target their main skill players, and Pittman is obviously the guy right now. No T.Y. Hilton this week either. Their tight ends, as you mentioned, kind of just pop up here and there. Hard to predict. So he makes sense, but I think a lot of people are going to do that. I think just paying up for Taylor is the play. I think Taylor's price is also going to keep people off him. The more I think about it, And, you also have people trying to take shots with like Carson Wentz maybe, or players on the, or maybe like a Mike White or a Michael Carter, right? I think paying all the way up for Taylor tonight in the captain, you might get actually lower ownership than you think. And for me, he is definitely the play if I'm talking about between him and Pittman. Not that I dislike Pittman. I don't think he's going to be low enough owned to really make it like a proper play over Taylor.
I'm looking at some of these ownership projections for tonight. I know a bunch of people use different sites, obviously, for that type of information. But, you got Jonathan Taylor, who is projected to be owned in the captain spot in about 20% of lineups. In the flex, in about 50% of lineups. So this is a guy who's going to be in almost 3/4 of lineups based on projections. Michael Pittman is not far off. He's at about 43% in the flex spot. Carson Wentz, 50%. Michael Carter, 41%. I mean, these are some large numbers. I guess the bigger question that I should be asking you here is, who should people be looking toward for differentiation tonight? Who are the value plays? Who are the guys that people aren't necessarily thinking about, so that you're not having, I know there could be some unique lineups, obviously, but there are going to be, a bunch of guys, or a few guys anyway, that are going to be captain in like 15 to 20% of lineups.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think Michael Carter will also get some love. I mean, he's a running back. He gets touches. People just love the reception total he's put up. I really do think like the guy you pivot to, if you are looking to go low and in the captain. And again, I think those ownership, like if those ownership projections, and again, where I'm not going to like go around the internet and give you like where all the different sites haven't projected, but if Taylor does stay, let's say around 20% owned in the captain, I'm fine with that. Like, I mean, I think he should be closer to 40% owned here. I think that's how good a play
in the captain spot.
Yeah, in the captain spot. I think he should be like 30, like over 30% kind of thing. So I think Jameson Crowder is a guy I would go to. Again, I see him being far less popular than Michael Carter. I think both those guys are in very similar spots where both could get 10 plus catches, but I don't think they're both going to get 10 plus catches. And I also don't think both of them will have big nights. I think one of them might, but I would rather lean on Carter here, or excuse me, I'd rather lean on Crowder here over Carter. Again, better matchup, I think, against the Indy secondary as well. So
it's funny, he doesn't even necessarily look like he's going to be the most popular captain, like it, or at least, when it comes down to, I don't know.
I think that salary is really going to keep people off Jonathan Taylor. I really do. And it didn't really, again, I didn't look at the projections this morning when we were talking about it, but it does make sense.
I mean,
now.
You could save $1,200 going down to Carson Wentz.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a decent number of people are going to do that. So again, I'm really about captaining Jonathan Taylor. I think the other guy who would be, I'd consider, because I really don't think he's going to have very high ownership, would be Crowder. But, those are kind of my two favorite plays. And then we've got a guy in Ashton Dulin.
I was just going to bring him up. I'm glad you did.
Who's definitely going to have some ownership here. He's only 200. T.Y. Hilton out. I know the last time T.Y. was out, he played on a bunch of the snaps. I think it was like Garion brought him up this morning. Garion spent the whole segment talking about Ashton Dulin.
I mean, look, he's got 4 targets in back-to-back weeks.
Oh no, absolutely. And like, I'm not making fun of him. I mean, he's viable. He needs to be talked about.
No, but look, if you're bold enough to put Dulin in the captain spot, and obviously not a lot of people are going to do that. But if you like, it's going to be a very low, ownership play, percentage play, whatever. But if you're bold enough to do that, I mean, I'm not making a lineup here, but I'm assuming based on just salary, because like you said, you get $300 in the captain spot. You can fit Wentz and Taylor and Carter and Crowder and Pittman. Like, you could probably fit them all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the world is your oyster, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can,
and with money left over,
you can order caviar and have steak for lunch, for breakfast or whatever. But, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be viable. Obviously, who knows? I mean, we still got Zach Pascal out there as well. The tight ends. So, but Dulin doesn't need to do much, to pay off. Obviously, you'll need a higher scoring game for the studs and stuff like that, and hope nobody goes completely bananas. But it could happen. I mean, Taylor, if he stays out of the end zone, maybe just gets a bunch of yards. Maybe, Dulin finds a big play. Maybe Carson Wentz, just rushes for one touchdown. Maybe there's a special teams touchdown. It's just spread. And then Dulin ends up with, 10 points or something. That'd be massive. It'd probably work out. So there's some viability for it. I think he's just better just to use in the flex. He's going to have some ownership. I mean, this isn't a play that like, 5% of people are going to use, but
no, he's going to be in at least a quarter of lineups.
I think that's probably correct. Yep.
I wonder, just looking to see who else makes some sense.
Well,
you mentioned Zach Pascal, obviously. Like there's going to be some popularity around him. I don't know if anyone's going to be looking toward the kickers tonight. I don't think anybody's, and I say this in a broad sense, not literal, but I don't think anybody's playing the DSTs tonight. Like what I mean, I think the Colts, I mentioned this earlier in another show. Yeah. I think the Colts make a lot of sense. If you got a season-long team out there and you're like, my defense has a bye this week or something like that. Like I'm in that situation. I've got Tampa and a couple of season-long teams. They've got a bye. I picked up the Colts. The Colts are a good streaming option for this week. They're projected for a decent 8, 9, 10 point night. I just don't think that's, a direction I would go in for DFS.
Right. Yeah, no. I mean, the Colts, well, where did I go here? Yeah, the Colts are a little bit expensive, right? So
they are.
Give me 1 sec. I'll be right back.
Sure. Get after it. $7,500. Well, to captain the Colts DST, who's going to do that? But you look at the last few weeks. Houston, 15 points. At San Fran, 11. Last time out, Tennessee, 6. You got 8, 7, 11 in there as well. So a group that's averaging 8. So no surprise that obviously they're projected to have in that neighborhood of 8 to 10 points. And with the Jets on the other side, which all hail Mike White and all. I know we've been talking about that, but generally this is not an impressive offense. It's I don't think we're going to see with regularity what they did against the Bengals last week here against the Colts, especially against what is a better defense. But yeah, I wouldn't go in the direction of the Colts DS.
My humblest apologies.
No.
People.
You are Canadian. You are already by nature humble. I'm not worried about that
always
at all.
Come at the worst time. Yeah, the Colts defense, let's just, I'll just give you my thought. I mean, they're priced up, right? So
yeah,
like, I think using Taylor and the captain and then the Colts and the flex, I mean, again, that could even make your lineup a little bit more unique because you're paying for the most expensive player up there. You're paying for the way more expensive DST. So they're going to be owned, but they're not going to be like heavily owned or anything. I think for value, like the other place you look for value other than Doolin, is really the Jets receiving core, right? Because we have a group of players.
Well, Denzel
Mims, Braxton Berrios, and Ikeal and Cole, who are all like the same price, and they're all kind of in the same role. They're playing like between 30 and 60% of the snaps, and they're all getting like 2 to 4 targets every week. And the guy who comes out of that with 50 yards or something might be the play of the night. So I kind of like Ikeal Cole. He's the most consistent of the group. He's played on 60% of the snaps. I know he played 60% of the snaps last week, but he's kind of been the most consistent in terms of usage. People like Mims because he's the downfield target. I just don't know how much downfield passing there's going to be. So I like Ikeal Cole, but honestly, all these guys, Berrios.
It is wild that Berrios had 18 targets the first 2 games of the season.
Yeah, and now
he's got 7 since.
So yeah, this is where this game gets a little bit hard to dissect, right? Like when we go down here, we've got Doolin that could work out, but you've got random things like the tight ends. You've got Elijah Moore priced up for some reason at 6,200.
Yeah,
I know he caught 6 balls last week, but they didn't go for much yardage. And again, like people expecting now Mike White to just start chucking 70-yard touchdowns. I just don't see it. So I think I'd rather go with Cole. He's cheaper. Moore is kind of like the fade option to me, but I don't know. All these guys, the nice thing about all these guys, none of them are really going to be like, you don't really have to worry about ownership. I think Mims might be projecting for the most right now, but it's not going to be like that heavy. So they're all going to kind of just eat into each other.
Well, we've got about, 15 minutes left or so. If anyone has any thoughts on this Jets-Colts game, we are happy to dive into those, obviously. We can get into the main slate on Sunday a little bit as well. Some of the key news here on a Thursday that has come out so far. There's been a lot of it, obviously. Deshaun Jackson, he's still, he's out there after the Rams waived him, so he's available to sign with anybody. Devontae Adams, more notably, is off the COVID list, sticking with that Packers team. As we know, Aaron Rodgers not going to be playing this weekend, it appears, after while being not totally truthful about his vaccine situation, to put it one way anyway. Cowboys sticking with quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, he's a full participant today. He's on track for Sunday. That game coming up here for Dallas. Saints, Taysom Hill, concussion, full participant, on track for Sunday. Of course, Jameis Winston no longer an option for that team. Those are some of the bigger news and notes so far today. You will also Odell Beckham Jr. excused from practice again today, so I wouldn't expect to see him on the field this weekend. I'm not sure I'd expect to see him in a Browns uniform again, period, the way things are going after his dad just blasted Baker Mayfield on Instagram as well. So the things are going really well in Cleveland and Green Bay, for that matter, and Vegas. It's just there are a few teams that, for various reasons ranging in severity, obviously, are not a pretty picture right now. What is standing out to you news wise as we sit here on a Thursday afternoon?
I mean, we had like the big influx of news at like the start of the week this week, and it was crazy. And it's kind of died down a little bit. I think a little bit under the radar play that's kind of like hasn't been reported enough is like Dak Prescott's healthy. He's going to be back. So that's really good for Dallas going up against Denver. Dallas is just a team who's just like winning every week and
wagon right now, 6 straight.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Good for them. Taysom Hill, I don't know if we got full practice for him. So, I mean, he could be in this week. That could be like sneaky against the Falcons as well. They haven't talked about it or anything like that, but again, something to keep an eye on. And then the last guy to keep an eye on, like there's the 2 studs for San Francisco are banged up, but Elijah Mitchell returned to practice this week. I really like him for DFS. I think the 49ers have a very good shot at upsetting the Cardinals this week. The Cardinals are not healthy. I really think Kyler Murray is banged up. Like, I don't think it's just like he's going out there. I don't think there's any chance Kyler Murray is 100%, even if he plays this week. And we know that when he was not 100% last year, it wasn't great. So I think Moore could really pummel that defense. San Francisco could take a league, and we could just see a similar game to last week. So that's one of the upsets I kind of have called for this week. The money line switched. Wow. Okay.
The Niners minus 130
now?
plus 110 for Arizona.
Was there news about Kyler today that I missed? That is really switched. The 49ers like so. Plus 110 this morning. Okay. Well, okay. It's looking pretty cagey for Kyler, I guess. Is just
making a quick bet real quick.
No, I'm just reading. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah. So, okay. Just, I think it seems like more people have jumped on the idea that Kyler might not play, and they're getting it on the 49ers early, which does make sense. I mean, even if Kyler plays in this game, you're still, like I said, I think you're in a pretty good spot, but this line, I haven't checked it like since the morning or something. So, okay. I guess people agreed with me. So.
Yeah, we've got our producer Eamon just pulled up something quick on Kyler, but nothing too new. Just the ankle injury, obviously, that he suffered during that loss against Green Bay last week.
I think what it is we're getting later in the week, and there's been no positive news. So again, I think bettors are reading the tea leaves, and it does make sense to invest at that. Made sense to invest at that plus money on 49ers. So at home, they're in a good spot, and
So looking at these games in general, just, scanning it right now, let me see. So obviously we got the Jags, which are heavy dogs at home, with the Bills coming in 14.5-point favorites, which is incredible on the road. Of course, they were favored, by 14 against the Texans and won by like 30 or 40.
Yeah.
Cowboys are favored by 10 at home against the Broncos. Dak expected back, as you talked about. The others, it's mostly, it's the rest are basically touchdown or thinner, smaller spreads. Those are the big games. I think that we're both inclined to believe that the favorites are going to cover there. I mean, even, I don't know, what's your approach to when you see 14.5-point favorites on the road, even when the Jags are the home team? Not like the Bills have just been juggernauts throughout this year. So how do you view that?
Yeah, you kind of got to take it on a case-by-case basis. I mean, the big favorites have done very well at covering this year. And you mentioned the Bills. I mean, if you got on the Bills early last week, I think the Bills closed as 16-point favorites. but they opened as 14-point favorites against the Dolphins. So they did cover if you got on them early. And I'm not really sure. I mean, do the Jaguars even have home field advantage? Like, I don't, it doesn't feel like it these days, right? So I don't think that the Bills being on the road is that big a deal. If they're 14 against the Dolphins, like, yeah, they should be at least 14 favorites against the Jags in this spot. So it's a big point spread, but Buffalo is a team who's very complete on both sides of the ball. There's so many ways for Buffalo to get there to cover. Josh Allen has a big day. Steph Diggs goes nuts. The Jaguars turn the ball over. The Bills defense just shuts them out. Like the Bills are a complete team, and I don't mind taking big spreads on complete teams. So yeah, they had their moment against the Titans, and I'm not saying they're like the reincarnation of like the 80s 49ers or something, but they're definitely one of the most complete teams in the NFL. And the Jags are just, they do so many silly things like run the ball when they're down, play it too fast a pace. I think the Jags are a fine team to play against for a big spread. So all things considered here, I got no reason to be on the Jags. And this one I could see, I think this one's going to play out just like last week. I think you'll probably see this line get up to like 15.5, 16 before kickoff.
When you look at some of these sizable over-unders, that game 48.5, Dallas and Denver 49.5, 50, Minnesota and Baltimore. You could 49 Chargers and Eagles, 53.5 Tennessee and the Rams in primetime with that game coming up Sunday night. Is there one in particular that you're looking at for a whole lot of offense? Is it in fact that Rams Titans game? Is it going to clear 53.5?
Yeah, that one is, I mean, I don't see how the Rams don't put up a ton of points through the air there. And I think that people, like, you might even see this line come down because people are just saying, well, it's Derrick Henry, the Titans aren't going to be able to score any points. But, they have Jeremy McNichols is a pretty capable back, if I'm being dead honest. And I'm not saying he's replacing Derrick Henry, but they can still certainly run and play action and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think there is going to be a lot of points. I think the Rams be shocked if they didn't put up at least 30 on that Tennessee secondary with the way Matthew Stafford is playing. It's a big game for the Rams, right? It's a quality team in prime time at home. So yeah, I mean, I think the way that game doesn't get there is if Tennessee's offense implodes, but I'm not really expecting that to happen. Mike Vrabel has been through stuff like this before. Again, it's running back. Like, running the ball is, you want Derrick Henry in your lineup, but running the ball takes the offensive line is involved as well. I think Tennessee is going to be okay. AJ Brown healthy now. So yeah, I would lean over there mainly because I just feel like that Rams offense is going to be so hard to stop for the Tennessee defense.
We've got 5 to 10 left. Let's go near and dear to your heart, my man. And there are a few different things that fall in that category, but let's talk pucks, huh? Little action in the NHL tonight, because we've got, a good amount of games going on. Just pulled it up on the DK Sportsbook here. Obviously, action beginning in a little less than an hour and a half at this point. Looking across the board, you got your standard 1.5 goal line, puck line across all games, 5.5. Your standard total everywhere, with the exception of a couple that you got some 6 over-unders. But which games are you honing in on? Which ones are worth people investing in? Yeah,
so I really like the Panthers tonight. If you read any of my NHL write-ups, you can go to DKNation.com.
I read all of them. Of them.
Read them up. Soak it in before lock. Panthers going to be starting Bobrovsky tonight. They're coming off their first loss, but I think the Capitals, they started hot. I think the Capitals are getting a little bit too much respect here. This is a team that's out without TJ Oshie and Nick Backstrom right now. They've lost 3 of their last 5. They shut out the Coyotes, but everybody does that. So I really like the Panthers here to bounce back. I think that they can attack here with on the power play. I know I mentioned them on the money line. They're starting Bobrovsky, who I think you just ride until he regresses a little bit. He's playing out of his mind, but I think the Panthers have the edge in a lot of spots there. So they're for me minus 150. I actually think they're getting a little bit discounted. And I don't hate taking a shot with the Sabres as well. If you're looking for like a bigger puck line to chase, Sabres made a big move today. They finally traded Jack Ikeal. You've got the Kraken. The Sabres might even have like the better offense, like first line here. So like, it's not an offense that's going to scare you. They do probably have the edge in goal, but the Sabres goaltenders have been pretty good. Dustin Tokarski starting for them tonight. You've got Jeff Skinner going. I think all things considered, plus 170 Like, I don't know if there's too many teams that should be plus 170 against the Kraken right now. So I'm all for taking a shot with the Sabres here. Again, I think this franchise, moving on from Jack Ikeal, I think there's got to be some relief on the ice there. So I don't mind that spot at all. In terms of just like players or something like that to keep an eye on. Well, let me dive into the player props here. But those are the two money lines I'm really liking tonight. Again, one favorite there in Florida, and then the other one, the bigger underdog, obviously, the Sabres out west.
What were your thoughts on the Ikeal trade, by the way? You may have talked about that on the Sweat earlier today. I can't remember what time the deal came down, but what were your thoughts?
So, I mean, I think that between the Flames and the Vegas Golden Knights, that they made the right decision. Like, there was a lot of talk that they were going to be going after Matthew Tkachuk, and Matthew Tkachuk has a monster contract. And you look at Alex Tuch, the main player they got back. I mean, Alex Tuch is a really, really solid, like, two-way player. He's a guy who drives the puck. You can use him in a different bunch of situations, and he's got a way better contract. So I think it was smart there. I mean, they've got obviously some first round picks, and maybe the Golden Knights picks won't be as high, but they also got Peyton Krebs back. Ikeal is kind of damaged goods at this point too. I think that's what the other thing. So it's a pretty good haul, in my opinion. Maybe you don't get that like star player back, but when you're looking from a hockey perspective, like, the star player doesn't always good. Like, they eat up a lot of salary, like, unless you're getting like a McDavid back, but there's only like 3 or 4 guys like that elite in the league. Right. So, and I wouldn't consider Matthew Tkachuk one of those guys. So I think it was a smart move to go with the Vegas deal. You've got a high-end prospect, got a couple firsts, or a first in the conditional. And then you've got Tuch, who I think is a very, very good player. I like it. I like the way they leaned anyways.
We got a couple minutes left here, and we just sort of, lightning round, so to speak. We'll bounce around, obviously, did a little hockey. So CEH is in the chat. Says, Koff, can you give us some of your favorite NBA plays here at the end of the show? Well, CEH, as much as I don't like the idea of you taking my money, I'm happy to do that. So looking at the studs tonight, Moose, and I don't know how much you've looked at NBA, and it's a short slate tonight. There's not a lot of games, 5 games going on, but Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, LeBron is out, so both those guys become more appealing, obviously. That's something you and I have touched on in the past. Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, Christian Wood, Rudy Gobert, Trae Young, Bam Adebayo, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker. Like, these are all the studs that are available. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't really like any of them. I'm not saying I'm not going to play any of them, but none of them stand out. Like, if you were to say to me, you want a much more balanced lineup as opposed to a stars and scrubs lineup, I think that is the night, this is the night to do that. I just don't think any of those guys, like maybe Davis or Westbrook, depending on how you feel about the Lakers without LeBron. But, I don't think any of these guys are just in these can't miss stellar spots. I think you move down to some more mid-tier and value options, guys like Josh Giddey, Mikal Bridges. You could look at Korkmaz. You could look at Basley. You could look at Lou Dort, Cade Cunningham, Matisse Thybulle. Shake Milton is a guy that you like to talk about. KJ Martin, Campaign. Like, a lot of these guys who I know a lot of them are cheaper, obviously, but I think a lot of these guys are the ones that are in position to win you money tonight. I don't think it's all those studs that I mentioned off the top. I don't think any of them necessarily are in these just can't miss spots where it's worth paying the $9.5K plus.
Kind of feels like a night where you almost, like, being contrarian might pay off, like taking some of these studs in bad matchups, because you're right, none of these guys stand out. So why not take just the biggest leverage spot? Like, if people are all fading a higher priced option in a bad matchup, and I mean, maybe against maybe Tatum against Miami. I mean, that's not, I know that's not a good matchup, right? But are people playing him? I doubt it, right? I mean,
because he's been awful.
Yeah.
He's been absolutely terrible so far this season. He's shooting like 25% from 3 or something like that. So yeah, I mean, if you're
really
looking,
has been terrible.
Yeah, like if you're saying to yourself, like, this is the breakout night for Jason Tatum,
well,
going to be a contrarian play, no doubt about it.
I mean, and again, like, if we don't like any of these studs, though, that's kind of like on these nights, that's usually what I end up kind of looking for. And I'm not saying Tatum is like the guy you should play. I'm just using him as an example. Yeah. I'm sure there's better examples out here as well. What about this Houston Phoenix matchup? I mean, Devin Booker hasn't been that good late either this year, has he? He's been okay. Yeah, I don't know. Does that one, what is
again, none of these studs are in great spots. I mean, if you're looking, you could look at just looking at the DK Sportsbook, if you're looking at a game where you just think there's going to be a bunch of points, Houston and Phoenix, that's got the highest over under tonight, the highest total. OKC and LA, not far off.
Is the ownership just going to all go to Westbrook just out of default, I assume?
Let me see, just in terms of some of the projections. Looks like Davis is projected to be owned about 35% or so of lineups, and Westbrook's right around 30.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, the two Lakers studs, I guess you could counteract that by,
I mean, heck, you could put both in a lineup. It's not like it would be a bad decision. I'm not sure I'm going to do it. I haven't built my lineups yet, but I outlined a lot of value for you a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
You can afford to do that. You can afford to pay up for multiple guys that are 10K. And this would be a night that, I'm not saying you should do it, but this would be a night that you can do it and feel good about it, if you believe those two guys are both going to go off without LeBron.
Yeah, it feels like, with Embiid, Westbrook, and Davis, maybe you pay up for two of those three. I mean, is there a fourth guy you'd add to that group? I don't know. Butler?
Bam.
Bam's
going to be chalky tonight.
Yeah. So it does feel like that night. I agree. I think Stars and Scrubs is definitely, you try and get, because if we don't have studs that we think are going to break the slate, I mean, the pay up guys almost become more valuable in a way because they're still the guaranteed points in NBA, right? So if we don't have these like screaming plays in the mid tier and stuff like that, and I kind of agree with you, just looking at this slate quickly, there doesn't seem to be, there's not a ton of good matches, not a ton of guys who look like they're going to come through. I would definitely say that is, pick two or three of your best favorites above, and then just go super value. That's probably where you're going to get the lineup construction tonight. It wouldn't shock me.
Well, at least you got OKC and LA, Russell Westbrook revenge game, if you like to buy into the narratives, folks. We're going to get out of here. Thanks to producer Eamon, Daniel, of course, our technical director, all of you for watching. We appreciate you joining us, YouTube, Twitch, or of course on Twitter, and getting involved with your comments and everything else. This show comes your way Monday through Friday after the 4:00 sim, right around 5 Eastern. I'll be back with you tomorrow with Bukes, with LaMarca, nothing but Red Sox talk, wall-to-wall Red Sox. No, I'm just kidding. Baseball season's over. We're going to do heavy football. I'm sure quite a bit of basketball with LaMarca. That's not Bukes' neck of the woods. I don't even technically know actually if we have Bukes, because I know he's down at the Sports Betting National Championship, but I hope he's going to be part of it. Otherwise, maybe Moose will be back.
Are we sending him down there to make the players feel better about themselves? Like, oh, here's Steve Buchanan. I mean, everyone can beat him. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, pretty much. It's part of our VIP customer service team at DraftKings. We send out some of our faces just to make you feel better about yourselves.
Right.
Yes. Hey, if you need help sleeping at night, here's Steve Buchanan. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you again tomorrow in 23 hours. Until then, Moose, pleasure, man. Let's hop on a sim sometime.
No.
Okay.